everyone, and welcome back to the Renegade Ventures podcast. We're so excited to have you here today. We are getting the pleasure of talking to our new friend, Jody, about her business and how much it has grown and what it's like to build a mission-driven business. So we're just so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Welcome, Jody. Welcome. I just learned about this. Just learning about you has been fascinating. So I can't wait for this conversation.
So actually, we like to let our guests kind of give their elevator life pitch about your impetus story to becoming an entrepreneur and how you got to creating and building this business, the Green Goo.
Thank you. Well, my mom, sister, and I started this company together. My sister is an herbalist and a midwife, and I was pre-med. And our goal was to change first aid. We saw that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told the chemical-laden products were the only products that could get the job done. And then we saw an opportunity where chronic skin conditions are at an all-time high. And the conventional consumer was less concerned about the ingredients, but more focused on efficacy and was just generally dissatisfied that you could only use these products for 7 to 10 days, discontinue use if symptoms persist, and then go see your physician. So we wanted to reinvent first aid and first lead with efficacy and then also provide a plant-based and sustainable solution that you could use that's safe for you and the whole family.
That's amazing. So did you all always think that you would be entrepreneurs? I mean, it sounds like you were pre-med. Were you still a student?
So I had just finished my master's in health psychology, was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model and specializing in psychoneuroimmunology. So I was very much on my path for my medical career. And actually, I discovered my entrepreneurial legs. I decided to take a beautiful old home that I had found and turn it into a bed and breakfast that was just going to be a weekend hobby thing. And it turned into 3 wedding venues, an equipment rental company, coordinating company, and catering company. So that was like my business MBA 101. So when my sister first came to me when she was going to herb school and said, "Hey, I think we have something really special here," I had just really became, P&L savvy, if you will, and saw the opportunity that there could be something really great here.
So are you saying that the product, which is called Green Goo, was what you guys discovered and then you found the market, or was it like you saw this problem in the market in first aid and were like, let's create something for this market?
We created the products first, and so we were using them personally, and we were just really happy with them. And I was like, gosh, look at our first aid cabinet. Like, we have all this clutter, all this one-time use. And then I'm like, we live a very clean life. Like, why do we have all of these chemicals? So we started selling them at the farmer's market, but it was really the farmer's market that mirrored back what we personally were experiencing and then what the market potential was. And then taking that information is when I really went, and me being super data driven, started looking at like IRI data and consumer behavior in the OTC space. And it really just further emphasized for us the breadth of the opportunity to disrupt first aid. And so, we weren't really sure. And here's where, the Renegade is really fun, is that we had natural shampoo and conditioner in the world. People were buying organic foods, but the first aid space had not been disrupted for over 50 plus years. And we had just accepted that these were the brands and the products and the process for OTC. And so the first time I went to a pharmacy buyer and I said, "Hey, I've got a plant-based solution for Neosporin." And he just about fell out of his seat. And, today we use plant-based very differently than, it's a much more common term, but 10 years ago, nobody was saying the term plant-based, nor was there plant-based first aid. And what makes our product so effective is that we still make the ingredients ourselves. So we're not bringing pre-made extracts to our manufacturing facility. We're actually still bringing those plants through the same process that we did in our sweet little kitchen when we were making them for the farmer's market. And you'll love this story, is when we were making them in our kitchen, our production became so busy that we actually had to take our camping equipment and make a kitchen outside in the backyard for us to cook our food because we didn't have enough capacity to cook both our food and our salves together.
So it's a big company now. Give us a sense of the scale now of what you have, and then I want to hear how you go from like your kitchen to that big scale.
Well, there's so many twists and turns in this story. So we grew the company to over 150,000 points of distribution in less than 5 years. So it was bananas. Like I was on the road 3 weeks out of the month, visiting with various retailers, bringing my daughter, my husband, sometimes my dog, all over the place and trying to turn it into fun adventures. So we grew really, really fast. And we finally had that intersection. It was right after COVID happened, and we just about lost our business because we were 98% retail. If someone had poison ivy, they went to their local pharmacy. And so COVID happens and lockdown, and no one's going into stores. And so our team had to pivot very quickly to build a direct-to-consumer model that we didn't have. And thankfully, the team, like our mission and vision was just so beautifully aligned in our culture that we were able to get things done super fast and pivot. So we were able to save the company, and, we had salves that were helping a lot with dry skin. We had sanitizers. So we were really supportive of those first responders. I mean, we were shipping like our family, my parents and, in-laws until like 3, 4 in the morning sometimes getting this stuff out the door. And we didn't have to fire a single employee. And that we were so proud of. But what we recognized is that we really needed to de-risk the situation because we were competing with the biggest brands in the world. And we saw a lot of smaller brands just fold because they couldn't survive that financial challenge. So we started looking for partners, investors, and so forth. And there were plenty of chemical-laden brands that wanted to bring a plant-based bolt-on into their portfolio, but it just felt really disingenuous with our DNA. So we found a public company that was international. They were very interested in expanding globally. Their founder was the financial resource, so they were well-funded. So we were really excited. We were like, okay, like we can stay true to our roots. And very soon into the partnership, like weeks into the partnership, that founder was raided by the feds and faced a number of legal allegations.
Whoa. Okay, I want to stop because
Yeah.
I would think that there's just so much here to digest and go through. So I want to back up and talk about like Jody, you were on this pre-med path, realized you had this passion for entrepreneurship, and started with a bed and breakfast that turned into a lot of physical space things. Then your sister becomes an herbalist, if I'm even saying this correctly, and you all discover all these plant-based products that you're building and decide, hey, let's go do this and bring it to the farmer's market. It's growing and growing and growing, and you all are choosing the path of retail. COVID hits and you move to direct consumer. And then you decide we are going to sell our company to another company. And then immediately that person is under investigation.
You got it.
Wow.
That is insane. So before we jump to the post by or what happened with the sale of the company, let's talk about what it was like moving from a retail model, or what made you all decide to go from the farmer's market into retail rather than investing direct to consumer? Because I feel like it was at a time where direct to consumer online brands were really, really big. So what made you determine, was it just how that naturally evolved? Was that a strategic decision? How did you go from farmer's market into retailers? Because that is a jump that I feel like a lot of people want to make and can't really figure out how to start making enough product and distributing and then making the partnerships to get in stores. So let's talk about that piece first.
Well, it's kind of twofold. So one, retailer started reaching out to us to carry our products, but really more like mom and pops. And then we grew up in the military and we felt very passionate about our servicemen and women having these products. And my dad was in the military and he would take our Green Goo first aid, which is a portable first aid, with him on deployments. And they just loved popping the little tin in their fatigues and, cut scrapes, blisters, chafing, ingrown toenails, sunburns. I mean, it's just so wonderful to have that when everything's uncomfortable and it's hot and you have all your fatigues on. And so and then dovetail that into, like, if you have a cut or a scrape at the time, you immediately went to your pharmacy. If you had poison ivy, you went into your pharmacy. So it's just sort of this natural human behavior that you go to your pharmacy for your first aid. So it kind of pushed us in that direction. Now I'll say we got my first retail meeting was the Air Force and Army exchange. And and it really was like a happy accident. I just started asking around because of our passion and commitment to focus on this group. We got the meeting and it was so funny because I asked my mom and sister, I was like, okay, what are you going to wear? And my sister's like, I'm not going. I'm the herbalist. And my mom's like, I'm not going. I'm the graphic designer. I'm like, y'all, I did not just draw the short straw. Like, I'd never done this either. And so, of course, I went and I'm sitting in the waiting room and this other woman, we're talking and she's like, this is the second largest retailer in the world. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, I did not need to know this information. So I get into the meeting and they want to move forward. And they're asking me for like UPCs and are you EDI compatible? And we need to do an end cap. I have no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah. You're Googling under your desk. Yes. I know
Exactly. I'm
what
like,
you mean.
you betcha. We'll move forward. So I get back to the family and I'm like, so we got in. And by the way, it's the second largest retailer in the world. And by the way, I have a laundry list of things that I have no idea that we just committed to.
A lot of entrepreneurs have that moment.
Yeah. And so that
So
became like the
then,
playbook where I was like, okay, now I understand. Like we had to build the supply chain, the infrastructure, the process. And as soon as I had that process built, then I just sort of replicated that and just started knocking on doors.
and so you all, I would assume, had to find someone to manufacture the product for you and figure out how to make it at scale. Were you able to continue with that same manufacturer when you moved to the direct to consumer market?
Yes, and thank goodness we found the manufacturer we did because we needed to protect that process because the integrity and the efficacy is a result of the fact that we're not using extracts and we're processing the plants. And it actually took someone whose son had eczema and he met us at a trade show and he just got one of our samples and he came back and he's like, I run a manufacturing facility. It's very different than what you guys are doing. But this is the only thing that my son has ever used for his eczema that's actually worked over the counter. And he's like, the world needs these products. We have to scale this. And so he created a dedicated line with a dedicated team for us to be able to move forward producing these products. And that product, John Hopkins has been using in their scleroderma and skin condition department for over a decade.
Is this a product that is heavily regulated? Like is there a lot of legal hoops to jump through?
It's interesting is when we started, there were no plant-based products registered with the FDA. And interestingly enough, the FDA had just started really investing in botanical research and providing a path for active versus inactive ingredients. So we were one of the first to start that process. And this is back to that learning curve where I was like, okay, mom, you're officially in charge of regulations now. And so we had to get a lot of attorneys, go through the process, and then we registered Green Goo with the FDA. And we can now reference the herbs that the FDA recognizes. So my sister being the herbalist is like, well, why can't we say calendula flowers does more than just being an astringent? It's antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial, but we can only reference it as an astringent in the same way that the FDA does. And matter of fact, fast forward, my mom ended up training other attorneys to be able to help other plant-based brands be able to go through that same process. So she became an expert in her own right without even knowing that was going to happen.
That's so cool. So, all right. you figure out how to make it at scale. You've gotten yourself into retailers. Now you're in direct to consumer, and you've decided you need a financial partner. And so you sell the business to this other company?
So on paper, it was a sale. In spirit, it was a partnership. So the idea was to create like a roll up and bring in other brands. So we were very much a part of this going forward. And unfortunately, because the way the transaction worked, we didn't get like any monetary return from it. And so here we are at the buyback. We had less than 24 hours to terminate our legacy team that we had fought so hard for during COVID. And I mean, I'm talking my mom, my sister, my husband, my brother-in-law, employee number 1, best friends who had changed their careers, all of it. And, you know, in that moment, you've lost your team, you've lost your sense of purpose, the thing that we have been fighting for the last decade, our jobs and potentially our homes. And that was a really rock bottom moment for sure. So we started helping our team, find new places to work. And then we're sitting at the kitchen table one night and, after the tears and somehow it turned to like, I'm like, Mom, how much Green Goo do you have? Because production stopped. And so, she's kind of calibrating her inventory. And I'm like to my sister, Jen, I go, how much do you have? And so we're trying to pool our inventory because we personally can't live without these products. And then the emails are flooding in. My son is a paraplegic. This is the only thing that works. My mother is a diabetic. This is the only thing that works. I suffer from chronic pain. Where are these products and when are they coming back in stock? And that's when we looked at each other and we said, we have to find a way to buy this company back. I don't know how, but we're going to try.
Wait, yeah, why did they stop? I don't understand why the company that bought it didn't wanna provide it.
Well, they didn't have the resources to do it.
Oh, they were
Yeah.
after all the legal stuff, it
Mhm.
kinda just had to stop. I gotcha.
The
Wow.
reputation became tarnished, the financial revenue or the income, became a challenge. And so, uh, unfortunately, they eventually were delisted and yeah.
So you buy it back. What did that look like, and what did that take? You have this moment that says, "Okay, we sold it to these people that were supposed to help us. They actually tanked it. Everyone still needs it. We've had to lay off everybody, but we still want to go forward. We believe in our mission." What what did it take to buy it back, and um, how did you go through that process? And I guess really, when was that exactly in the timeline? Like what timeline is that? Because you all are rocking and rolling today.
Well, it took us 18 months to buy it back. And so there was no production. There's, we had no control over it. And it was so interesting because we spent the first 10 years building the company in sort of a state of fight or flight and do. And all of a sudden, it was a shift in mindset. And it was like, we just needed to be. We needed to have presence. We needed to have clarity. And there wasn't anything to do except for, and there was a lot to do, but it wasn't in the same kind of motions that you're used to. It was seeking mentors, finding different financial institutions. I mean, I was applying like 10 times a day sometimes to various financial institutions, making introductions. And when you're in that state of being and you don't know how you're going to pay your bills the next month, it's a ton of like what could have been um, so much anxiety that you have paralysis. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where you're like getting out of bed and you just feel the weight of the world on your shoulders and you're like, why am I doing this? And then you get that email from that customer. And also like our entire family had invested our personal dollars in this. And my parents' retirement, my bed and breakfast, that I had bought or sold. And so there's also that. And then there's also just, that this is such a beautiful, these are beautiful products and they work and people need them. I need them. So it's just like that constant coaching with yourself and others. And I had a coach that I had hired just before all of this happened. I had probably only been working with him for a month or so. And that Monday after all the terminations, and I just said, I can't pay you. I'm sorry. And he's like, I'm going to show up every Monday at 5 o'clock. If you're here, I'm here. And he did. And I it was incredible. And he would set me up for coaching. Like every 3 hours, I had to do these mental fitness exercises. Like I had an alarm set on my phone. And I had to do these different presence exercises the same way you go to the gym. And he's like, Jody, this is the time for you need to be the most mentally fit that you've ever been and the most present so that you can deal with this challenging time. And my goodness, that was like the greatest gift, and just kind of taking one step forward and tackling one thing at a time to get it done. And so we are just approaching. We're in 2 weeks, we will be approaching our year anniversary of the Buyback.
Congratulations first. The story is incredible. And the amount of strong vision and belief that you have to go through something as tragic as losing a company for no other reason than a bad business deal. And there are other people, I know other women in my network who and other men who have had a business kind of fall apart, not because the product didn't work, not because there wasn't customers, but because the legal or the business deal was bad. But you followed it all the way through, and that just shows your commitment to your customers and to the brand and to the impressive nature of this product. I actually, when you reached out to talk to to Renegade, my assistant said, I use this product for my daughter who has severe eczema. I fully believe in it. You have to interview Jody because the product is truly life-changing. And I was unfamiliar. And now I'm like, okay, we've got to go buy a bunch of this because I have a dad who is former military and has Agent Orange, and kids that have all kinds of scrapes and burns, and nieces and nephews that have pretty bad eczema. So I'm so excited that we get to share your story. Maggie, do you have any questions as we wrap up? Because I know we have a hard stop, but I really want to make sure that we get a chance to ask any kind of final questions.
What is next for you all in building your legacy? It sounds like you have a centeredness about it and a vision and a proactivity as opposed to a reactivity. Tell us about what the plans are.
Well, we're still getting back in stock, and we only announced to our customers maybe 2-3 months ago and shared the story with them. And so we're rebuilding with so much more joy. I mean, yes, from a business perspective, this is the more challenging. I'm in a startup, and yet like I'm just getting the most joy. A couple weeks ago, we had the whole family in the warehouse, and we were doing a pack out and shipping a bunch of boxes together. And I just took a video and I just like relished it with them. And I was like, I just want to have so much more joy because I have so much more gratitude for being in this position. And I also feel like all of these bumps and bruises, it's kind of funny. It's like Green Goo's the symbol. And then we went through all these bumps and bruises. And I feel like if I can help other entrepreneurs and really anyone who is going through a crisis, whether it is an entrepreneurial crisis, a personal crisis, to develop these skill sets to be able to find the tools in their, tactical tools in their toolbox to be able to move forward in a difficult time, and also to try to find the joy in those moments, then it was all worth it. And seeing the halo effect that's happened in my own home as a result of this, like how it impacted my husband and my daughter. I mean, her math teacher pulled her aside the other day and said, I really want to applaud you for how you take your tests. And my daughter was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I watched you rub your fingertips together, take a couple deep breaths, and then just really focus, and you're very present. And I've been sharing these tools, and I'm like, oh my goodness, if a 14-year-old can adopt these tools, just think about what joy she'll have as she's navigating. And again, becoming a more authentic human and being able to translate that into the work that they do. And so it makes it all worth it.
Well, Jody, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. Um, I appreciate your authenticity and the intensity that is the story that you went through, and that you are in the middle of re-rising and feeling that you have like multiple moments of renegade, right? And there is something really special to just being like, screw it, I'm buying the shit back and we are doing this again. And once you've done it once, you can do it again, and just believing in that. And so I think that that is a very powerful message for our listeners. Um, and so if they wanted to get in touch with you or buy this, where can they find this miracle product and learn more about you and your story?
Greengoo.com and Amazon. And then I am also on LinkedIn at Jodi Scott. And I love engaging with our customers. So please don't ever hesitate if you have a question about the products and how I can best serve you and help you navigate the assortment, but also just on a personal level. Please don't hesitate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.